We have some new College Football 26 information to talk about today. The deep dives have not been released yet. It looks like the Madden full reveal is this week, meaning the deep dives are probably pushed starting next week. I'm getting married this Friday. My honeymoon will be next week. So because of that, I'll probably be MIA next week. I don't know if I'll have any content out on, Instagram or YouTube. If I have downtime and I have internet, then maybe I'll try to at least get a post or a video out quickly. I'm going to take my laptop, but the quality would probably be, pretty poor. And I know it may come as a surprise, but my wife and the honeymoon definitely takes priority over this game. So I will try to get something out if I can. If not, I'll be back the following week to have all the usual content out. So let's go ahead and get into it. Almost all of this information is coming from the Bunch Formation podcast, which is a new podcast hosted by Chris Vanini and David Ubben, I believe is how you say his name. As we know, Chris Vanini wrote an article a few days ago that was, had a ton of information in it about college football 6. He accidentally actually broke the embargo, and that's how he talked about Road to Glory before anyone else. And he also got to go to Orlando and actually play the game. So I will link the podcast episode down below in the description. It's like an hour long, I believe, if you want to listen to the full thing. But I picked out all of the big information and the news that hasn't really been talked about yet over the past few days with the reveal. So first things first, this wasn't actually in the podcast episode, but I wanted to touch on it. We do now have it confirmed that coordinators are in College Football 26. So it's not just the real life head coaches, it's also real life coordinators. I don't think they got literally every single coordinator, but they got a lot of them. And that explains why they have over 300 coaches. We were speculating that in my last video if they're going to have coordinators, and in fact they do. So a lot of different schools posted on social media that their coaches are in the game, and it wasn't just the head coach. Like I said, it was also the coordinators. So that is how we got that confirmed. I'm not going to lie, that's like a massive W from EA. I'm really surprised that happened. The fact that they went to those lengths to get not just the head coaches, but the coordinators, that is a pleasant surprise, and I'm glad it's in the game. And not only did FBS schools post this, but I saw at least one FCS school post this, which is Prairie View A&M. So they posted the same graphic as the FBS schools and said coaches are in the game. It shows their head coach. On the second slide, it has the names of all of their coordinators. It has their special teams coordinator, their offensive coordinator, and then it looks like they have 2 defensive coordinators. So it has all 4 of those coordinators on the post. But I didn't see any other FCS schools post this. And I know last year there were some FCS schools kind of like trolling and making their own graphics saying they were in the game, but they obviously weren't actually in the game. So I can't tell if this is what that is or if this is legit. But it would make sense if EA did get FCS coaches, because obviously it's common in real life for an FCS coach to take an FBS job. So maybe they just got FCS coaches to be in the pool of coaches, and you can hire some of these guys to come to your FBS school. I saw some people saying this is legit. I saw some people saying it's got to be fake. It's got to be a troll. I'm trying to get confirmation myself, but we should know soon. And we know that FCS schools are not in the game. That has already been confirmed. FCS schools are not in the game. But like I said, there could be some coaches in the game. Okay, the rest of this information, I believe, is basically all coming from the podcast episode. So first up, the updated college football playoff is in with the straight seeding. That's kind of obvious, like, duh, that was going to be an adjustment that they made on the fly to fit real life. But the bigger piece of news here is that there are no customization options with the playoff, just like last year. So you can't, put it down to 4 teams. You can't bump it up to 16 teams. There's nothing you can do to change it, which kind of sucks. I wish that was in the game. I feel like it should be in the game. They did say they think part of the reason it's not is due to licensing issues, which makes, that does make some sense. If they're licensing the real college football playoff, which is what they are doing, then the people over at the CFP want the accurate CFP represented in the video game. So hopefully one day we'll have more customization options with the playoff, but for now we do not. Next up, we've already talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if I've talked about it here on the channel. Dynamic lighting is in the game, so if you start a game, at 4 o'clock, by the end of the game, the sun's going to have set. That is good. Obviously adds a touch of realism to the game. That leads into this, though. Dynamic weather is not in the game, meaning the weather stays constant throughout the whole game. So, if it's raining at the beginning of the game, it's going to be raining at the end of the game, and throughout the game, the rain, how much it's raining, is it going to change? Same with the snow. if it's sunny, it's going to stay sunny, except, like I said, the sun might set, but the weather is going to stay the same throughout the game. However, they did say that the weather in Madden is super cool. Chris Vanini said he couldn't say too much about it, but they've made an emphasis to do something with the weather in Madden, and they actually posted this picture here on X showing the snow. So I think the weather is going to be a focal point in Madden 26, and if fans do like it, it'll probably make its way into college football, whatever it is. I don't even, we don't know the specifics of what it is, but it sounds like some sort of weather feature is going to be in Madden 26. But we don't care about Madden on this channel, so moving on, it sounds like there's no new Road to Glory positions. He didn't straight up say there's no new positions because he said he couldn't directly talk to it, but the question from the listener was, are there new positions in Road to Glory? And he said, like, hey, I can't say too much, but if you played Road to Glory last year, it's very similar. So I feel like that's basically saying there's no new positions in Road to Glory, which sucks, but it does make me wonder, since there are 10 new archetypes, where do those fit into the positions? I believe there's 5 positions we could play last year, so I guess maybe each one got 2 new archetypes. That's what I'm thinking. If you enjoy my content and you want to support me, or you want to buy me and my soon-to-be wife a wedding gift, definitely sign up on Underdog using code Tubby. They just dropped their playoff basketball promo. With the extender promo, you can play your way to increasingly bigger boosts each round of the playoffs. Start a playoff series by using your Game 1 boost and continue boosting each subsequent game to unlock the next one. The longer the series, the bigger the boost. You're going to want to see how serious it gets when that Game 7 hits. Hop on Underdog, the best place to make picks during playoff basketball, and get started right now. And if you use code Tubby, you'll get a free pick and a deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. The next few all have to do with Dynasty mode. So all players now have a deal breaker in Dynasty mode. So when you're recruiting a player, every single one's going to have a deal breaker. So like last year in College Football 25, only some of them had deal breakers, but every single player now has a deal breaker in College Football 26. And we've already talked about it a little bit, but dynamic deal breakers are going to be in College Football 26, and we got more confirmation on what that exactly means, and it's kind of what we just assumed, but it means that a player's deal breaker can change. So you may at one point satisfy their deal breaker, but then their deal breaker changes to something else, and now you don't satisfy it. So it's going to be important to continually meet these deal breakers and, satisfy your player's needs. Otherwise, they're going to hit the portal and get out of there, which I actually like this because I think that's more realistic and it makes the transfer portal kind of crazier, which again is realistic because the transfer portal in real life is just bonkers. Like it's thousands of players every single year just transferring all the time. And on the podcast episode, they actually interviewed Ben Hawmiller, who is the principal game designer for college football. And one of the things he mentioned is that all blue chip players and especially all quarterbacks will care about playing time. So I'm not sure if that means they're going to have multiple deal breakers, like a player might have 2 deal breakers, playing time and something else, but he said every blue chip player, which is a 4 or 5 star, and then especially all quarterbacks. So I don't know if he was meaning especially the blue chip quarterbacks, or if he meant literally every quarterback, even if it's a 2 or 3 star, they will care about playing time. So it's important to get these higher rated guys and the quarterbacks playing time because that's going to be a deal breaker for them, which again, I think is realistic. Like the 4 and 5 stars that go to, a big school, if they're not playing their first year, especially their second year, they're transferring. That's just how it works these days. And that leads into this point. Ben Hawmiller said that they adjusted the transfer portal to keep it stocked. He mentioned that one of the issues in College Football 25 was that as you got further into your dynasty mode, down the road, several years into it, there were less and less players in the transfer portal. And he basically said that was a mistake on our part and we have adjusted it and fixed it for College Football 26. So when you're year 10 into dynasty mode, there's still going to be just as many players in the portal as there was in year 1. And they even mentioned in the last blog from the other day that they are going to expand the transfer portal. And I think that's good because the transfer portal is a massive part of college football in real life. And in the game, it was cool that it was in there. But like I said in the last video, there was barely any 5 stars in there, even 4 stars. As Ben Hawmiller said, the further you got into Dynasty, the less players that were in it. It wasn't utilized a ton, to be honest. Maybe I would grab a couple guys in there, But I mean, in real life, some schools are literally just straight up building their team through the transfer portal, and you couldn't really do that in college football 25. But it sounds like in college football 26, the transfer portal is going to be seriously improved. The interesting thing about this is that kind of also affects you and your players entering the portal as well. And Ben Hommiller also talked about this. He said it's going to be harder to stockpile players on your roster year over year. So then, that freshman you got that's incoming, maybe he's a blue chip player, he's a 4 or 5 star, he doesn't really get to play. He's probably entering the portal. You're not going to be able to keep those guys on your roster for 2-3 years. He said, like I said, it's going to be harder to stockpile players, and you're going to have to, either recruit new freshmen or you're going to have to go to the portal yourself to get those holes filled. And it sounds like I'm just describing like real life college football because that's kind of what they're going for. So hopefully that's actually how it works. And this isn't just, the usual EA talk. I will say Ben is one of the guys I actually trust. This dude worked on the old NCAA football series. He's been there like 20 plus years. I've even talked to him on Instagram. Super cool guy. So he's definitely a trustworthy dude. Now, this next thing I want to talk about, I think might be the coolest thing I'm going to talk about in this video. It's the most specific new feature that's going to be talked about in this video and maybe just the past few videos I made just since College Football 26 news has come out. So Ben Hommiller was talking about the new season and career health meters. And we know in the blog, they talked about how wear and tear is going to be expanded and adjusted. I think they called it like wear and tear 2.0 or something like that. So in dynasty mode in College Football 26, there's going to be a season health meter for each player and a career health meter for each player. And it's basically just going to show how banged up that player is. The lower the bar, the more injured or banged up they are, and the higher the bar, the less banged up they are. It's basically just showing their overall health. So what he said was super interesting. He said if you drain the season health bar down super low, and then that carries over to the following year, then their career health bar is going to take a hit, making them more prone to injury, and they're going to become tired faster. And to me, this sounds pretty cool. Like, it has a lot to do with roster management and playing time. It has to do, obviously, with the wear and tear system, but it's going to carry over throughout their career. And it makes sense because if you have a player that's just continually taking hit after hit, that might, seriously mess up that guy's career, even like into the next year, into, 2-3 years into his senior year. That happens. There are guys in real life who by the end of their career, they just medically retire because they're banged up. And that's why I think formation subs are going to be massive. That way you can sub guys in and out. But even the on-the-fly substitutions that they're adding, which is great. I'm super excited for that. They've been doing that in like 2K for years where you just click down on the D-pad. You can quickly switch a guy in or out. And it's going to be apparently the exact same way in this game. You click on the D-pad, switch a guy out. They said it might take a little bit longer because obviously you have 11 guys on the field, but same exact idea. So that'll be great managing wear and tear. It'll also be great managing those deal breakers we were just talking about, trying to get some of those guys more playing time. And they've also mentioned there's going to be sliders for wear and tear, so you can kind of adjust it to where you like it. So if all of this I'm describing sounds terrible to you and you don't want to deal with all of that, you can adjust it to your liking. And last year there was just a setting to completely turn it off. So I assume that will also be back in College Football 26. Last thing I want to talk about, it's not dynasty specific, and we've mentioned it a little bit. It was a little bit in the blog, but Ben Hommiller said that the defense is going to be a lot improved. It's going to be easier to play defense. It's going to be easier to get defensive stops. Now, they don't want to hinder the offense, but they said last year they probably leaned too far into the wide open, gameplay, the wide open offensive gameplay last year. That was a big focal point, and it should be a big focal point because that's how real life college football is. But as most of y'all probably agree with, sometimes it felt impossible to get a defensive stop. And so they're saying they're adding things, and we've already talked about it, like, the stunts and the different coverages you can do to help play defense and get more stops. So that is basically it for this video. We got a little more detail on some things. The health meters I thought were really interesting. We should be getting more information soon, specifically next week, and then basically all the weeks after that. Like I said, going to be out of town on the honeymoon next week, so probably no content. I'll see what I can do, but the week after that should be back to the regular scheduled content. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Follow me on all socials at TubbyCFB.